Imagine a force so unstoppable that it stretched from the frozen plains of Siberia to the sands of the Middle East, from the walls of China to the heart of Europe, a single empire that connected East and West, controlling more land than any dynasty before or after. This wasn't just an army, it was a storm, a whirlwind, led by one man, Genghis Khan. But just as quickly as it rose, it shattered into pieces, leaving behind legends, fear, and a new world forever changed. The birth of a legend. Genghis Khan's early life, long before he became the most feared conqueror in history. Genghis Khan was simply a boy named Temujin, born around 1162 on the harsh Mongolian steppe. His childhood was not one of privilege or comfort, it was a life of struggle, survival, and constant danger. The Mongolian steppe was a brutal land, endless grasslands, freezing winters, burning summers, and tribes locked in a never-ending cycle of raids and blood feuds. Temujin's father was poisoned when he was still a child, leaving his family abandoned by their own clan. Suddenly, the future conqueror of the world was reduced to a boy with no protection. Forced to hunt for food, gather wild roots, and fight off starvation with his siblings. But it was in this harsh environment that Temujin learned the two things that would define his future: endurance and loyalty. He understood that survival depended not just on strength, but on trust and unity. If you were skilled, brave, and loyal, you had a place by his side, no matter your social rank. By his late teens, Temujin was already proving himself to be more than just another tribal warrior. He escaped captivity after being enslaved by rivals, rebuilt his following, and began uniting the fractured Mongol clans. What began as a boy's desperate fight to survive would soon transform into the birth of an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen. Uniting the Mongol tribes, the Mongol steppe was a land of constant chaos. Dozens of rival clans fought endlessly, raiding each other's herds, kidnapping families, and betraying allies when it suited them. Unity seemed impossible. Every tribe had its own leader, and loyalty shifted like the wind. But Temujin had something none of them did, a vision bigger than himself. He understood that as long as the Mongols remained divided, they would always be vulnerable to enemies like the powerful Jin dynasty of China or rival nomadic tribes. If the steppe could be united under one banner, the Mongols would become unstoppable. Temujin's strategy was unlike any other tribal leaders. Instead of ruling through fear alone, he built his power on discipline, loyalty, and fairness. He abolished the old aristocratic system where noble families automatically claimed power. Instead, he promoted men based on talent, courage, and loyalty. A blacksmith's son could rise to the rank of general if he proved himself on the battlefield. And they were right. When a tribe resisted, he destroyed them completely. Mercy was rare, but loyalty was rewarded generously. By 1206, after years of war, betrayal, and alliances, Temujin had achieved the impossible. The tribes of Mongolia were finally united. At a grand assembly known as the Kurultai, he was given a new title, Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. For the first time in history, the Mongol people stood together as one nation under one leader. And with unity achieved, Genghis Khan now turned his eyes outward. The world beyond the steppe had no idea what was coming. The Mongol war machine with the tribes united. Genghis Khan built something the world had never seen, a lightning-fast, disciplined army. The Mongol horsemen were unstoppable, each carried several horses, riding for days without rest. Their greatest weapon was the composite bow, small enough to shoot while galloping, yet powerful enough to pierce armor from a distance. But speed and weapons were only part of their strength. Genghis Khan organized his warriors into strict unit stands, hundreds, thousands led by proven commanders. From China to Persia, from Russia to the edges of Europe, the world trembled as the Mongol riders thundered closer. The expansion of the Mongol Empire, once Genghis Khan had forged the Mongols into a single, disciplined force, he looked beyond the steppe. His first target was the wealthy Xia and Jin dynasties of northern China. Unlike the nomadic tribes, these kingdoms had fortified cities, high walls, and enormous populations. Many believed the Mongols could never breach them, but Genghis Khan proved them wrong. The Mongols adapted quickly. When walls stood in their way, they captured engineers from conquered lands and forced them to build siege weapons, catapults. The Jin dynasty, one of China's great powers, was brought to its knees. But China was only the beginning. Genghis Khan then turned west into Central Asia, where the Khwarezmian Empire ruled vast territories of Persia and beyond. At first, he tried peace, sending ambassadors to open trade. But when the Shah of Khwarezm executed the envoys, it sealed his fate. Genghis Khan unleashed the full fury of the Mongol war machine. What followed was devastating. The Mongols swept through city after city with ruthless efficiency. Bukhara, Samarkand, Nishapural, centers of culture and learning, were crushed. The empire of Khwarezm was wiped from the map, its lands absorbed into the ever-growing Mongol domain. By the time of Genghis Khan's death in 1227, his empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, the largest continuous empire the world had ever seen. And yet, this was only the beginning. His successors would push even further, expanding into Russia, the Middle East, and deep into Europe itself. The Mongol Empire wasn't just conquering land, it was reshaping the known world, changing trade, culture, and history forever. The fall of the Mongol Empire at its height. The Mongol Empire stretched across 1/5 of the Earth's landmass, connecting east and west under a single rule. Yet, the very empire that seemed invincible began to unravel from within. The first cracks appeared after the death of Genghis Khan. Though his successors expanded the empire even further, Kublai Khan, conquering China and founding the Yuan dynasty. While others pushed into the Middle East and Europe, the unity that Genghis had built slowly weakened. The empire was simply too vast to control. Communication across such enormous distances was difficult, even with the Mongols' famous relay system of riders. Local leaders began acting independently, ruling their territories with little regard for the central authority. Soon, the empire split into four major khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, the Ilkhanate in Persia, and the Golden Horde in Russia. While still powerful, these states no longer worked as one. Rivalries, civil wars, and power struggles drained their strength. At the same time, the Mongols faced challenges from outside. In China, the native population eventually rose up and overthrew Mongol rule, creating the Ming Dynasty. In the Middle East, the rise of the Mamluks and later the Ottomans checked Mongol expansion. In Russia, the Golden Horde fractured under pressure from rising local powers like Moscow. By the 14th century, the once united empire had collapsed into scattered fragments. The Mongols had reshaped the world, but their dynasty as a global power was gone. And yet, their legacy lived on. They had opened trade routes that connected Europe and Asia, allowing ideas, goods, and even diseases like the Black Death to spread. They had also left behind a legendary reminder of how quickly power can rise and how easily it can fall. From humble beginnings on the harsh Mongolian steppe to ruling the largest empire the world has ever seen, the story of the Mongols remains one of history's most dramatic risonde, one of its most inevitable falls. And so, the Mongol Empire reminds us of a timeless truth. Power can build worlds, but it can just as easily tear them apart. From the rise of Genghis Khan to the fall of the last khanates, their story shaped history in ways we still feel today. If you enjoyed this journey through the rise and fall of history's most powerful dynasty, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more untold stories of the past to light. This is Decoding History and Science, where we uncover the stories that shaped our world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep decoding history.